Have I got a story for you? Actually, I just was pretty excited, although I blew it. So I was at the school administrators conference and met an amazing principal that you need to get to know. Zach Sowell is tremendous. And so I'm at his standing room only presentation, for which he was talking about the professional learning committees that they've created and how they've been able to do that and how they co-designed that with kids and with staff and how staff truly have leadership positions that are meaningful. And they also went phone free, which they saw as transformative and allowing them to have this ripple effect of just positive energy. And it just contributed to such a positive culture. So exciting. Okay. And he's at Robert Eaglestaff Middle School. Super, super, super. So I'm standing there, and at some point, as a good presenter does, they encourage the participants or the attendees to turn to a partner and talk about a question that he had asked. So I turned to the guy next to me. His name is Dave. And Dave says to me, "You look really familiar. How do I know you?" And I was like, "I don't know." He says, "Well, I'm in this program and I'm in this program, and neither of those programs are familiar to me, not being from Washington originally. So I'm getting to know them." And so I just said, "I'm so sorry. I'm not familiar with them. I do host a educational podcast." And he's like, "Imperfect Leader. That's how I know you." And I was super, super excited, my friend, that we were recognized for the work that we're doing. And where I fell short was, should have given him my card. I should have asked for his. I should have taken a picture so I could post to say, "Hey, here's a listener.
One fan.
You're right." I said, "You and my mother." Woo!
Exactly.
Totally.
And that's actually my favorite repeated joke of Peter Steepleman that still makes me laugh is, "Oh, you must know my mother."
That's right. I'm a big fan. Oh, you and my mother. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so good.
Which, by the way, my father is the one who listens to the podcast. My mother's telling me, "What did he say?"
Oh my goodness. I hear my mother listens to the podcast. I know this because she does it without her hearing aids in. And so it is so loud in her room playing where you and I are literally screaming in her bedroom.
Good stuff.
This episode that we're about to do has a past guest that I didn't even know was a past guest and a new guest at the same time. That was kind of cool.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, it's kind of fun
really
to have somebody return and for you to meet them for the first time. So Mike Lubelfeld, Nick Polyak, they are so well known in the superintendent circles, certainly within the Illinois state, but then also just on the national stage, they do such a tremendous amount of support. And Nick has been involved in the innovative schools work. Mike is a constant coach and mentor to many. And so to have them, this is obviously not their first book that they wanted to talk about. I was super excited to have them back. And instead of Nick talking about an after action review, because could you imagine, did you hear?
I actually want to open with this if that's okay.
Okay, let's open
the beginning of the.
And then we're going to listen to the conversation.
Yeah, then we'll listen to it because it's something he talks about right at the opening of the interview. But in his after action review, which comes from season 1, so spoilers for episode something from season 1, that he took a job as a superintendent in another town that required his family to move, but did not tell his family until they got
Well, it
the
wasn't
job.
like moving day where he said, "Oh, here's the thing. Could you put some things in a
That would
suitcase because we're moving?"
That'd be a better after action review if he had done it that way.
Yes,
But I was blown away by this. I was like, oh my goodness gracious. So it made me ask this question, and I'm interested to know because you've moved quite a bit all over. I mean, Long Island, Oakland, California, and now Seattle. What impact does this have on your family when you take the job in another place?
Well, here's the thing. I'm the trailing spouse in all of these stories.
Yeah.
So I'm the one who followed her to California. I'm the one who followed her to Missouri. And we together moved to the Pacific Northwest. It does have an impact. And I didn't realize the kind of impact it would have on our children too. So Nick,
say more.
Well, I mean, we're taking them from their communities of support, their friendships, and asking them. They are resilient. I mean, children are resilient and they will build community and connection wherever they go. Doesn't mean it's easy, particularly post-pandemic where their rooted relationships mattered a lot. And then now they were coming back and then shifting to a new place. I mean, my youngest did a marvelous job, whereas the middle kid was more, he just treated his senior year of high school in a new place as if he were an exchange student.
Did he make connections? Was he able to make connections?
No, I don't think he's made connections at the community college where he's going to school now and really has said, I have a community of friends here. And so that's nice. But when he lived here as a senior in high school, and then he went to go live in Taiwan. And maybe he wouldn't have gone to Taiwan if he had been so connected in Missouri and just continued on to school with his peers. Who knows? So maybe this was the kind of shift that turned out to be the best thing or a good thing. So
that's the aha that Nick has, is that it turned out fine. And I think that's great. I think every choice has a good and a bad, right? And so they sort of both come with it as you move. And these are big changes for families. And I've heard different superintendents make these changes and navigate them in all different kinds of ways. But I'm interested in the ones that say, oh yeah, no, me and my family of 3 kids are going to go across the country to this other state. Because each state is also different, right? Long Island is not Missouri, and Missouri is not the Pacific Northwest and such.
Yeah. I mean, I realized that yesterday, even in my intro to the presentation, I told a story that would have killed on Long Island, would have done fine in other places. And yesterday was kind of lukewarm. I thought to myself, I've been listening to Mike Bergiglia, whatever. Yeah. And he's got this podcast that I love called Working It Out. And he's always talking to people, and then they work through parts of their routine with each other. And then they say, well, this worked, well, this didn't work, or this is funny, that's not so funny. And so I thought, it's so cool. And so I thought to myself yesterday, what would have Mike said to me in terms of, did I trip over my line? Did I rush to the punchline? Did I really develop this idea? Was I too excited about it because it recently happened and it's really not that interesting for the crowd? So
right.
I tried to make this whole shift on, well, we're here to talk about phone-free schools and the mind shift that is needed. And so let me tell you a story about, well, first of all, before I tell you the story, I need your advice because I'm in a mindset right now about how I want to respond, but I'm not sure if it's the right response. So let me just tell you the scenario. And so I tell the story that I think is pretty funny. And they were compliant. They gave me their advice, but it didn't have the same impact that I had hoped for. So anyway, how about this? Let's get into our conversation with Mike Lubelfeld and Nick Polyak. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about it. Super excited about this. An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. I am Peter Stiepelman.
I'm Jamie Amonson.
And we are super excited to have you here. So, okay, let's go. Let's listen. Today on An Imperfect Leader, our guests are 2 Illinois superintendents, Dr. Nick Polyak, the superintendent for Layden Community High School District 212, and Dr. Michael Lubelfeld, superintendent of the North Shore School District 112. Nick and Mike, welcome to An Imperfect Leader.
This is so cool to be here with you, Peter. Thank you. And if I'm anything, it's certainly imperfect.
Well, you're on the right podcast. All right. So, and Nick, welcome back. For those who have been following the podcast since the very beginning, Nick was super gracious to join me in season 1 when I was editing using GarageBand and trying to figure things out. So you were super kind to give me your time. Thank you again.
Oh, good to see you again, my friend. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Hey, so I'm curious, Nick, were there any reactions to, for those who are close to you about your after action review? And for those who may not remember, Nick told us, actually, if you're willing to sort of relive this experience, and will you remind us what you did and what you learned?
Yeah. The story I told Peter last time is that there was a point in my career where I was a superintendent in one part of the state of Illinois, and I was interviewing for jobs, and I made the critical mistake of a new job to move my family without speaking to my family about that decision. And so talking about the fallout of that and how we kind of worked through it together, certainly one of those moments in my life I'd like to go back and get a do-over.
Well, I think things have worked out all right. Mike, you knew that story. What was your reaction when you heard
the story, and I know and respect his wife and 4 children, and I am glad that I was not in the same room when any of them found out about this. And like Nick, I'm unfinished and imperfect, and we live and learn, and thankfully we have great people around us like his wife Kate and wonderful kids who support him, and he certainly made up for it. But yeah, that was not a great decision at that time.
A number of us, what we took away from it, obviously, was like, oh my gosh, and a real sense of empathy for what no doubt was a difficult decision. And, in light of the fact that it was a real opportunity also for growth and for those types of things, but also just a reminder for all of us in leadership, how important it is to engage those who are most impacted by a decision, whether that be a professional decision or a personal one. So I imagine that was a takeaway for those who are listening.
Truthfully.
Yeah.
Peter, just to add, it led to some really good conversations with my children 10, 11 years after the fact. It was very hard on them to leave their friends in the community they had become a part of. And then in retrospect, now that they're in college and high school, they've told me that, there have been so many more opportunities for them where we are now. They've played sports that didn't exist at that old high school. They have lifelong friendships with people they've made where they are. And so a lot of good came from it, but being on your show brought the conversation back up to my family at a much different point in their lives. And so that's been a lot of fun for us.
I hadn't thought about that. I mean, really, that you get to also, what was their memory, because you're part of that conversation, that decision. And, you don't ask someone who's 7 at the time, but now is 17 or, 10 is now 20, their own perspective and how things are different. Oh, I'm glad to have played a role. That's great. If you're just joining us, our guests are Nick Polyak and Mike Lubelfeld, superintendents in Leyden and North Shore school districts, respectively. Now, the two of you are really well known in superintendent circles. You mentor fellow leaders, you coach them, and you inspire them with your writings. Nick, last time you were on the program, you were on your book tour for An Unfinished Leader that you co-wrote with Mike and PJ. Now you have a new book coming out, I think book 5, Leading for Tomorrow's School Today, featuring the C.H.A.N.G.E leadership framework, if I got that right. Will you tell us about your book and then tell us about the C.H.A.N.G.E leadership framework?
All right. And so Nick and I are really grateful to the countless mentors and cheerleaders and guardian angels and coaches and guides we've had. And we're blessed with the opportunity to be able to pay it forward, pay it back to others. So in Leading for Tomorrow's Schools Today, we share 8 case studies, 3 each from our own practice and 2 each from the general universe of public ed and society. And we run every one of them through a change model called the C.H.A.N.G.E model of change for Virginia Satter. And then we've created our own change leadership model. Peter, thanks for asking about it. So the acronym C.H.A.N.G.E reflects each of the components. Challenge the status quo, have open conversations, adapt and be flexible, navigate obstacles, generate a shared vision, and enjoy the journey. So as you lead change and as you go through change, which is definitely difficult for everybody, and it involves loss and all of that, before the leader herself or himself or themselves come up with a shared vision or a vision statement, Nick and I challenge that. And we say, challenge the status quo, because the status quo seems like it's nice and smooth, but it's not. There's disequilibrium and chaos even in the status quo. So challenge it. Have those open conversations and listen probably 10 times more than you speak. Adapt and be flexible, because we've learned anything, and we've learned quite a bit, is you need to adapt and be flexible. And then it's not a matter of if or maybe there'll be obstacles, there will be. So navigate them and then generate that shared vision together with others, and then enjoy the journey, because there's a lot of joy to be found. Nick, what have I left out?
No, it's fun because, Peter, what we're trying to say is, everybody knows we need to change, but nobody wants to change. So this book allowed us to shine a light on a lot of the people in our own school districts that have navigated change and done some really cool things. And so we use them as exemplars to highlight the change framework, to show how people can work their way through these difficult changes specific to our field in education.
When I think about leading change, often the initial, is there a shared sense that change is necessary? And oftentimes you can say yes. The challenge is when you start to lead that change, the system, particularly those who now feel as if they are losing something, the system will work aggressively to return to that status quo. And so you talk about navigating conflict. I wonder if there's one of the 8 that you share in the book that sort of just come to mind in terms of what might be some ways that people can navigate that aggressive return to status quo when you're trying to pull them back. You're like, no, this change is good. We all said it was good. We had a shared image about where we want to go. Let's not go back.
So in preparing for our talk today, been doing some reflecting and thinking through, and I'll tell you this. So I'll kind of tee it up this way. I've been an ed tech geek and nerd, self-described and externally validated, for my career. I probably always wanted to be the AV guy, taught social studies, always had the overhead projector, the opaque projector.
I had my AV license in middle school.
Yeah. I had the laser disc player with the barcode reader. Oh yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? So I was so excited when COVID came and we got to go remote learning and check out this theory and hypothesis that we could scale up electronic technology learning pre-K 8. And let me tell you something, it didn't work, Peter. It didn't work. And we worked our what's off here. I got some of the best teachers, administrators, parents, kids, the whole world. We had resources. We tried so hard, man. We worked hard. We studied. We bought stuff. We did everything. We got maybe a D minus. And we had 4 first days of school. And we tried program and group and company and technology. And I nearly passed out coming in here, giving out devices, wearing a mask, and you get the whole scope and the intensity. And guess what? Now we're past all that. And I'm the superintendent who, will fight to stay open here in the Midwest with cold days. It's cold, bundle up, but I'm not going to e-learning because it didn't work on scale. Yet I'm the biggest tech geek you're going to find. I've got a new pair of AI glasses waiting for me at home. So I'll just kind of leave it at that as a big, broad one. And Nick usually fact checks me and makes sense when I amble on too long.
I'll more accurately answer his question, if that's okay, Mike. Well, one of the case studies I got to tell about was about a group of teachers here at Leiden who completely reinvented freshman year. And when you think about high schools, you get that machine factory model of 45 minutes of English, ring a bell, walk down the hallway, go into a new room, let's do 45 minutes of science, and rinse and repeat, where everything is separate and siloed.
It's like such a dream for Frederick Taylor, right? Oh, it just all works on these systems. Just fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. Horseman, that's perfect. So this group of teachers started to think differently, and they traveled around the country and they viewed other models of what schools were doing, and they took pieces and came back and they built something unique for our community. So we now have this Leiden CoLab, which is an interdisciplinary, problem-based, project-based, standards grading, earned honors credits, completely different way to do school, where all of your content is woven together. So you go and you take a water sample from a local river, you come back and, you look at it and then you write about that's your English portion married with the science, with the local social science. And it's amazing. But it was because of a very passionate group of educators who challenged the status quo, right? And then they found a different pathway.
So in your example, Nick, your example makes me think about these incredible educators who lead significant change. And then how do you make sure that momentum beyond just those educators, that it becomes stitched into your system so that it isn't just when they leave that they go, oh man, remember we used to have that amazing coordination, that we were not isolated or siloed by our core subjects?
I think it's through support and celebration. This isn't an idea. It's not like Nick went to a conference and came back and said, hey, everybody, I saw this cool new thing. We're going to do it next year. This was a homegrown idea, but there were those obstacles. When we talk about navigate the obstacles, some of the other teachers are saying, wait a minute, that model can't teach them the same amount of biology or English or social studies that I do in my traditional classroom. And wait a minute, why are these people getting an extra prep period to collaborate? I don't get that time off in my day. And then our elementary schools were saying, now, what is this for? Is this for kids with academic difficulties or, trying to put a label on it? And my job was to try to remove the labels, to fend off the criticisms and let them develop and become.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so I guess then you also embrace a sort of an action research model to say, and we want to make sure this works. And it could be great for you too. This can be more of an abundant sort of approach. One of the things I thought about, Mike, as you were answering was, if you remember when E.T., the movie came out, it was Spielberg or Lucas, I can't remember, but they wanted Atari to create a game for the E.T. And if you were to go back and play that game now, you'd see that E.T. just sits like in a hole. Like he's just, every level is, because they had 2 months to create this whole game. And I thought about that quite a bit during the pandemic when I was like, you're asking us to completely overhaul the way that we teach children. This is really reminiscent of E.T. We're all just kind of stuck in this hole, every level.
Great analogy. Yes. Yes.
So,
I've seen a documentary on the creation of that game and how the early version of it was different. And then when they showed it to George Lucas, he said, can you make it more like Pac-Man? And that's when they added in the Reese's Pieces.
Oh, hey, that's helpful. How about that? I knew this was going to be the most amazing interview. This is fantastic. So, Mike, Nick has already done this. I'd like to pose this question to you. I ask this of every guest who comes on our show. How does the term an imperfect leader resonate for you?
I have to tell you, I've been thinking about this, and I've watched a number of episodes, a number of your interviews. I'm a fan, a longtime listener, first-time caller. So I will say that I believe in the saying, and I'm not sure who said it, but you don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I think some people attribute it to Steve Jobs, who knows, and kind of the concept is, look, we're in education, especially a very tight traditionally, stereotypically type A. We control our 25 kids situation. We've got a pacing guide, curriculum. So everything's like perfect and organized and orderly and fastidious, right? But humans are not, but I'm certainly not. And we can do a pretty decent job, and we can iterate, reiterate, iterate again, and call it leading in public and make some mistakes, right? Because I want to be really good and I want to make an impact, whether it's on teachers, whether it's on principals, whether it's on kids, whether it's on community. And if I wait to be perfect, which is unobtainable and is too high a standard, I'll never achieve anything, and I'll have what they call analysis by paralysis. I'll just keep studying and I'll never do. I'll keep planning and I'll never act. So I look at an imperfect leader as the type of leader I want to be. I want to continue to be or become, because I don't have all the answers, and I do want to have fun, and I do want to make some mistakes. Nothing that harms anybody, nothing that sets anybody back, but a mistake to say, hey, let's try this learning opportunity. If it works, let's continue it. If it doesn't, it's okay. Hey, let's try this program or this way to do PD. Let's just try it. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. So the imperfect leader resonates personally and deeply with me. I've been at this for more than 30 years, and I still love it, believe it or not. Yet I love it because I'm able to make some mistakes and am able to make some successes, and I'm able to be imperfect because I don't let perfect be the enemy of good. That's my take on it.
We're back for segment 2 of An Imperfect Leader, called Imperfect Leadership in After Action. And our guests are 2 Illinois superintendents, Dr. Nick Polyak, superintendent for Leiden's Community High School District 212, and Dr. Mike Lubelfeld, superintendent of the North Shore School District 112. Now, in this segment, we ask our guests to deconstruct a decision that they've made, and then we discuss it. And since Nick joined us in 2023, and you heard what his experience was, we're going to have Mike go through the after action review process. So, sound good?
It sounds fantastic.
Okay. So then, Mike, what happened?
Well, I'm going to stick with COVID-19, the worldwide global pandemic. In our school district, we really tried hard, and we did the best that we were able to do. And hindsight's always 20/20. So I kind of go in there knowing that I'm going to be an armchair quarterback on myself, which is probably not the fairest or healthiest thing. Essentially, I'm really proud that our teachers union, our support staff union, board of education, and administrative team, and parental community, one way or another, got through the March to August mayhem and chaos. March 2020, we're going to close schools for 2 weeks, and they were closed for a long time. March to August, we tried a whole lot of things. March to June didn't work. So we had a problem-solving program that was nice. We phoned a friend with a district management council, DM group. We set forth to come back part-time, in person, part-time. We refused to do simultaneous instruction, meaning if you were coming back part-time, you were hybrid. And if you were not coming back at all, you were remote only. And we had a remote cadre and a hybrid cadre. So far, I'm okay, Peter. I would have preferred to be in person full day, but I worked with a team and we compromised.
And this was K-12? This was
pre-K-8.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yep. Okay.
No, we're Illinois. So from September 3rd, 2020 to November 16th, 2020, we were in person half-time, and most of the people around us were not. And I understand in other states this is very normal, but where I am, this was unusual, and it was an anomaly, and it was a huge collaborative effort to be in person half-time. And Peter, we were fighting everything. Politics on all sides, decisions. We were trying to do public health. You get all that stuff. Okay. And so in November, case counts here in the Chicagoland metropolitan area were out of whatever the number was. At that point, though, there was an inflection point where those making data decisions, the public health folks, who again were working as hard as they could too, the politicians, policymakers, and school people, we had been somewhat in alignment from July to October. In November, there were some breaks. Well, we went all remote. So the part that I regret and the part that I would love a chance to do over is that by the time in February, where I will say I clawed us back to in-person half, I did so without the real or perceived supports of the data. And I'm using air quotes because we're making stuff up, the best of our ability, all intelligent, well-meaning people. The after-action review is we probably never should have closed down in the first place, because closing down in hindsight was simple. Reopening was near impossible. And when we reopened in February, there were federal lawsuits, statewide lawsuits. The public health people basically stopped with the data and the metrics that were guiding us and governing us. And honestly, we had really no idea what we were doing from a public health perspective. But I knew darn well from 30 plus years as a public school educator, being a school superintendent for a decade more, I knew it was wrong to keep the children and the teachers out of school and out of work. And there was not a darn thing I could do about it until there was something I could do about it. So the after action review is I never should have shut down entirely.
So that's what you would say was overlooked. Mike, I'm curious, was this an executive order that you were now you had to roll back your in-person, or this was more around the political pressure that you were the only district that was in even for part of the time?
Well, in Illinois, there were a lot of districts that were even full-time in person. In our area of Illinois, Northeast Illinois, there were not many that were in at all. The case counts were getting so high, but I say that saying we didn't know what that meant, Peter.
Yeah,
we knew
look,
they were getting higher
similarly,
than that number.
I mean,
Didn't know the impact.
Sure. I mean, I was in a university town. We were the catchment area for more than, I don't know, almost 1.5 million people that we were their hospitals. And so case counts and intensive care units and beds were being occupied. And every health director, infectious disease expert, and virologist was saying to me, can't be in. And my thought was, I'm sitting there on the stand and someone says, Dr. Stiepelman, I'm sorry, are you a medical doctor? No, but you thought it was okay to bring kids back when all of these actually certified professionals in medicine and in health said that you shouldn't be in? Like, how do you reconcile that? Well, I can't. So yeah, look, this is a very big topic for any one of us who led through the pandemic. Nick, I'm kind of curious, as you were watching Mike's district from afar and hearing him today, what comes to mind?
A little PTSD comes to mind, I think.
Yeah, I know. If for
You're
those
welcome.
not watching, he's in the corner, like in a fetal position, but
Sorry,
Yeah.
buddy.
I'm a staunch advocate for local leadership and local choice, and how we run most everything. I remember at that time wishing that the state level or national level would have just said, you have to do it this way, because we were in those positions to make, you're right. I'm not a medical doctor. What right do I have to say, bring the kids in or don't bring the kids in? But that's what we are left with is district by, we were all making our own choices.
right. Sifting through each of these emails that said, they come back, my kid's going to be the carrier, and I've got these 4 different immunocompromised people in my home. So they may not be getting sick, but they're going to carry it home. What are you supposed to say to that? Like, you have no idea.
Yeah. We lived in that every day for over a year.
So, Mike, you say what got overlooked was you should never have gone back out. Okay. What did you learn about relationships throughout that process?
Well, I have to tell you, the people of Highland Park are an unusually resilient group, as are the people of Highwood, the 2 cities I serve. Our school board was strong and confident. The state of Illinois really did the best we could do. And we had this task force of superintendents from north, south, east, west, and we talked to each other and tried and we worked together. Public health, county public health officials were heroic. The problem was we were making things up, Peter. Now, we made them up with the best logic and best laid plans and best of intentions, and we really thought we were right. As an expert in public education, though, the children should have been here, and those who were in person, we're finding we're doing a little bit better. It's impossible to learn when you're 8, make up a year when you can't see a face and you're trying to learn to read and you can't see the phonemic sounds. We also have to remember this, and this is something that I'm a little opinionated, a little brash, so I'll say it with no intention to offend people. But I had a professional class of parents whose last memory of schooling was their lectures, I believe, freshman year in college. And they demanded, as they were stuck working from home, shunted in their basements or living rooms, that we do 4th grade as an all-day lecture on Zoom, thinking in some remote way that's how children learn and that's how schools work. Because guess what? They don't, it isn't, and it didn't work.
Right. I mean, it's like hey, Jimmy, come on back. Wait,
Yeah.
Yeah, there he went. All right.
Right.
Yeah, 4 hours of that. Yeah. So I get a sense of what frustrated you. You said we were making things up. Is it fair to say what people were doing was taking the very best guess that they could?
Yes.
Is that, I mean, I'm just trying to sort of, I guess, maybe figure out.
I was counting the number of cases in our zip code, and we have 2 zip codes, and trying to do math based upon the zip code that's larger, the zip code that's smaller, and seeing if I was harming human life by bringing contagions into the building and spending $50,000 a month, $5 a month of taxpayer dollars on electrostatic cleaning. We certainly killed every other disease known to mankind in science.
Yeah.
No one had a cold or flu for 2 years because we killed all the viruses. I don't know, though, if it was the right decision to do that, my friend.
I was talking to a superintendent who reflected on he was in was like Kentucky, but they were on the Tennessee border. And so, or Indiana border. And so he had employees driving in from one state where their state were in seat, and yet his state was not in seat. And
Yeah.
I'm curious if you heard similar things in Wisconsin
Oh,
or,
yeah. Iowa, Wisconsin, Missouri, Indiana, and Kentucky all had slightly different or significantly different political approaches than the land of Lincoln. And I'm not criticizing any politician or any political.
No, I think it goes to Nick's point of if there had been a federal, as many other countries, a sort of, this is what we're doing nationwide. Now, you can choose based on, if you're in a rural community and you have 10 kids per class and you're able to be in seat, like there may be elements to be able to do that. And I think maybe, which is why they just said local control. However, at the state level, local control became really problematic.
Yes, it did. I do not ever hope to be in a pandemic again or a crisis like that. Lessons were learned and we'll all benefit from it. But I will tell you this, we do not have any intention of using e-learning on scale for our 4,000 kids and 550 employees. I have 5 emergency days, and if I close, we have a snow day. If we need a 6th day, we'll do e-learning, but it didn't work on scale. And I am a bit outspoken about that. I have to follow what's right. And as you say, what did I learn from it? I learned from it that I couldn't look you in the eye and tell you that it's okay for a 6-year-old or a 3 to 14-year-old in my world, in my district, or a teacher to have to prepare and deliver that way for a full day. It didn't work. I'm the biggest ed tech geek in the world, and I'll advance technology, generative AI, you name it, for kids, for adults, for groups. But I'm not going to repeat something that was absolutely miserable for us here in 112.
When we get off, I'm going to type into ChatGPT. We're experiencing a global pandemic. What should I do?
Yes.
I'm curious if it's like, you don't do e-learning all day as much as I like it. Nick, what else comes to mind before I ask my last question here?
Oh boy. It brings up so many thoughts. I remember our poor teachers trying to create content to deliver in that format while also trying to manage the e-learning of their own children in their home.
Yeah.
And so one fascinating thing that happened. So if we're thinking after action report here, our teachers got to see into our kids' homes for the first time ever. Mike said a lot of the parents got to hear the teachers teach for the first time. So there were a lot of old barriers that came down. And so there was a higher degree of empathy and understanding than I think we'd ever had before. I remember when we were delivering yard signs to celebrate graduation, and our teachers were driving them around and coming back and going, I didn't realize how many of our kids don't have yards. Where do you put a yard sign when you live in an apartment and you share with another family? You try to put them in the windows. And so that there was good that happened. There was good learning and empathy that grew from that. But boy, I never want to do it again.
So Mike, that's my question is, what was something that was good that came out of this? And Nick brings up something really interesting in terms of the relationships that began to build even more enduring relationships with families, knowing their situation. I'm curious from your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I will tell you this. Our 4 values were and are feed our children, promote and take care of the general welfare and well-being of our staff, students, and families, communicate, and then education. So one of the real nice takeaways is we Maslow before Bloom, chapter 4 of the Unfinished Leader and books and all that kind of stuff.
I'm glad you bring it up because I was trying to figure out a way also in terms of your new book, in terms of change leadership, where does this fit in? Because this was a challenge to the status quo as opposed to a leader challenging the status quo. And so you learned a lot. Yeah, no doubt. So
we want to take care of each other's mental health, emotional health, and well-being. First and foremost, universally, that was a huge positive takeaway, really positive takeaway. Another one is our teachers proved that they could change on a dime. They may not always like it. We may not always like it. We're going to work together. We got curiosity. We've got passion. We can adapt and be nimble in ways we never thought we could, Peter. Those are real positives, I believe, that came out of it.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to ask you both this last question in terms of the advice that you might give to an aspiring leader. Nick, I may have asked this to you last year when we talked. However, I always think it's important as those who are thinking about leadership or maybe contemplating a leadership shift in terms of moving to a different district, just in terms of your own work and maybe tie it to the book that you've just written. What advice do you have for an aspiring leader? So Nick, why don't we start with you and then we'll end with Mike.
If you're going to lead for tomorrow's schools today, Mike and I have been superintendents collectively for what now, Mike, 31 years?
Yes.
Like that. But we've seen a lot of people come into these jobs and we've seen a lot of people burn out, get let go, everything in between, right? So I often think about what's made the people be successful that have had long-term careers, that have been doing it, on scale for a long time. And there's this duality of strength and humility that I think you need to be successful. You need the strength to make the decisions when the decisions need to be made, right? The buck stops with you. People are going to come to you. When you come up through our careers, you always work for somebody. Then all of a sudden, everybody works for you and you have to make the decisions. See, you need that strength. But if you ever think you have all the answers, and Mike said it earlier, we don't. If you ever think that your job title makes you fancy or important, those are the people that, egotists who burn out in this profession. Where's the service industry? If it's not for our teachers and our kids, my job doesn't exist. So you got to approach this job with the humility and responsibility that I think comes with it. So strong humility would be my
beautiful
advice.
Mike.
So I will tell you everything Nick said, affirm, exclamation point. Tim McGraw's song, Be Humble and Kind. You know what some of us from a certain generation call common sense often leaves the equation when you look at a local Facebook group of angry parents who are either uncommon or have no sense. So, be humble, be kind, be curious. Remember, it's not about you. Remember that narcissism is really unhealthy and not going to serve you well. Have that curiosity and that excitement to remember that, especially when we're dealing with youth, they have one chance to go through their grade level they're in. It is up to us to make it amazing. As an adult, we're going to go through ups and downs, ebbs and flows. We're going to have different stages of our career, different stages of our relationships, different stages of our families. And we have to deal with that and manage that. The kids we're serving in public education, they deserve us to be on our A game every day as much as we can, because they deserve to have conditions so that they can create a future that we can't imagine now. As we lead for tomorrow's schools today, we're also living for tomorrow's society today. Be humble and be kind.
Our guests today were Dr. Nick Polyak and Mike Lubelfeld, superintendents and the co-authors of Leading for Tomorrow's Schools Today, featuring the C.H.A.N.G.E leadership framework. I am so excited for your book to come out. I cannot wait for it to become part of everyone's sort of vernacular. And I love the fact that you're using case studies as a way to really serve as a vehicle, because I think that's really where people can reflect on their own experiences and then do something about it. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Peter. This was so fun talking with you. It was awesome. Nick, you're not bad. You're all right.
Peter, thanks for having us. More importantly, go play with your dog. He needs some attention.
Holy crud.
Love, man. It's okay. We're both.
I couldn't be more embarrassed.
That's life.
Do you know I filled up this dog? I'm still recording. I filled up this dog with, I think, 1 million peanut butter filled pretzels, because every time that squeaker came out, I was like, go eat something, go eat something. So I'm sure this dog gonna throw up somewhere in the corner, but you'll always, I'll look at the throw up. I'll think of you.
Oh, thanks. That makes me
sorry. That's a really terrible way. This terrible way to end a podcast.
Hey, Peter, we're back. That was kind of fun. I really enjoyed having, I wonder if I have a bias toward having two people. That was really fun to listen to both of them. And I love that.
Well, they have a great relationship with each other.
Yeah.
Because it was
matters.
I mean, right? I ask a question, Mike answers in an, interesting way. I say, Nick, what do you think about that? And then Nick says, well, now I'm going to answer the question that you actually asked, because Mike didn't.
I thought that was funny.
I also, great.
As a card-carrying member of Gen X, the metaphor of the Atari ET game, which I remember so well. By the way, it is Steven Spielberg who created that movie.
Yes.
I just was like, oh my God, this is exactly this thing.
He's stuck in another hole.
Perfectly. He's stuck in a hole. He does nothing. And they're like, oh, make this game. 2 months, go.
Right. So, put all the curriculum online and have everybody virtually learning. Go do it, teachers.
Yeah. Go.
And I love Mike gave such great respect and honor to teachers who worked their tails off, curriculum developers who worked their tails off to convert what had been done face to face to an online platform. It was an impossible endeavor that they did marvelously. And I kept getting a lot of pressure to do, well, let's just give it a try for 2 weeks in seat and see what happens. And I refused. And the reason why I refused was I said, I want to do one thing well. Let's do one thing well instead of many things poorly, because going in seat for 2 weeks, we're actually only made it 2 days because now we have to close down again. We've got to close this classroom or this wing or this building. That was not going to be good for anybody. And so let's just try to do one thing well. And they did. They got better and better. Was it ideal, to Mike's point? No. Do I have regrets? Absolutely. And at the same time, we're not medical professionals. We're not healthcare professionals. We're not
Right.
health department directors.
Right. I wrote down a question related to that I thought was really interesting in that after action review that he shared. And that is, how do you prepare to navigate all of the different organizations and people as a new superintendent? More specifically, what can an administrator do to practice this stuff prior to becoming a superintendent? It doesn't feel like there's a way to practice this.
Well, I met with a principal just the other day, and he was talking about wanting to become a central office administrator and assistant superintendent, and asked me a similar kind of question in terms of how do I begin practicing talking about the work that we do in schools in a way that is an audience outside of my building. I feel really comfortable talking to families and talking to teachers. I've had no experience doing this. And I said, look, I mean, it seems kind of simple, but join your local Rotary, join the Kiwanis, because you get opportunities to begin cultivating relationships. Join your Chamber of Commerce as just a single, like an individual. It opens you up to these meetings that they have, and join their government affairs committee. And then you get to make speeches. You get to also talk and learn how the external systems impact your school. And you get to help them understand what you're trying to achieve in your internal system and how their support can make that happen. And so when the Chamber of Commerce goes on their annual trip to a sister city, now you get to spend time with the city council member and your county official and maybe the police chief. And you're just building these relationships and more so understanding their story, like what's going on in their lives. And so then you get better and better at making these, of being able to respond to the question you just asked me in terms of how do you do it? It's by building this relationship. This career, as we've talked about, is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle built on developing these meaningful relationships in and between systems.
That is spectacular advice. Spectacular. I think you have hit the nail on the I can see it. Maybe it's good. It happens during Pete Week.
Nobody knows what Pete Week is.
Well, let's just assume that if there is a week called Pete Week, that we know it's about you. I think that's just such great advice. And almost as if, you know what I want to do now, even though I'm not trying to be a superintendent. Oh, that's what I'm going to do. I mean, there are a few things that in my mind that I'm like, I know once I get settled, as you can see, in terms of my ever-changing backgrounds, once we finally get settled, I'm running for school board.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, I think that I am very interested in making sure that there are educators on the school board.
Let's talk about that. And let's talk about the 18 months before you even declare your candidacy, what you're going to do to begin building up and getting that network ready. Oh, that'll be fun.
You're going to be great at this with me. You're going to be my coach, which goes to I've got two more things I want to share in these interviews. One, he talks about their book and the change model that they have in their book. And one of the things that they say they wrote it was because of all of these different people that have supported them over time. And they called them mentors and coaches and guardian angels and other words that they used. He said, we're really grateful for the countless mentors and cheerleaders and guardian angels and coaches and guides we've had. And we're blessed with the opportunity to pay it forward and pay it back to others. So in their book, Leading for Tomorrow's Schools Today, they share these case studies. And this is in no way countering what they said. I am just clarifying as a coach how important it is to me that we make a clear distinction between these things, that a coach and a mentor are not the same thing. I mean, let's say as a coach, I'm almost never someone's mentor, almost never. A cheerleader, for sure. So there's little rules here within it. Here's the key difference. As a coach, I do not give advice. I just don't, because my deep belief, if I'm coaching Peter Stiepelman, superintendent, I believe that he has the knowledge and the ability to solve his own problems. And when he doesn't have the knowledge, he does have the ability. He has the skills. And so the knowledge is missing. Well, Lord, I can find the knowledge for him. That's easy peasy. Not only can I find the knowledge, but I can find models. I can connect him to other superintendents who've done the thing that he's attempting to learn or try. So that's probably the most clear advice that I give is, would it be helpful if you talk to another superintendent who tried it? That superintendent goes, oh my gosh, that would be great. I'd love to talk to someone like that. Great. No problem. Let me connect you with whomever. While a mentor, I see as someone who is an advice giver. You're going to that person for advice, for specific guidance. Does a mentor coach? Sometimes, but I would bet a mentor falls into advice giving more often than asking catalytic questions.
Let's put this out of education, and it helps me think about this for a moment. If I were thinking about a track and field coach, they're not necessarily going to ask questions. I mean, they might ask some reflective, how did this race feel different from the last one? Or why do you think this time was better than that?
Are they a coach or a teacher?
Oh, I see. So that's where it gets conflated, where coaches can also be teachers.
Yeah. And I think they teach or instruct. I think the word instruct is really good there. Here's what I think a track coach does that's coaching. They take video of you running and they put that video in front of you and they say, what do you notice? What do you see? That piece alone, if educators did that, we'd see massive improvement. Massive.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
But we don't video record ourselves ever. We don't even audio record ourselves.
It was the best. When I was an assistant principal, and then we carried it into my principalship, we had every teacher record a writing session with one-on-one with a kid, just about their writing. And then we watched it together as a faculty and gave feedback to each other. I mean, she had built such a caring community that we trusted each other in such a way. And my favorite though was this one kid. Oh my God, this kindergartner it was a one-on-one lesson. He's on top of the table. He's twirling the teacher's hair. And the teacher keeps trying to redirect him, and we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Right. We gave awards out for the shortest coaching session with a kid, and the longest. And of course, this teacher got the award for the longest one. And the kid was my son. My son was just under the table, on top of the table, twirling the teacher's hair, like hugging her, and she was just doing her very best.
I love that story. Can I make one more connection to the?
Please do. And just so, in terms of the change framework, I do really like the acronym for challenging the status quo, having open conversations, adapting and being flexible, navigating obstacles, generating a shared vision, enjoying the journey. And I love that last part.
That last one. Yeah. That is so good. I did like it when he says in relation, when you're talking about the change model, that the status quo seems nice and smooth, but it's not. I was like, that is perfect. That is perfect. The status quo brings its own sets of chaos. Here's what I think is why people don't try something different from the status quo. I'm like, I just wrote the devil you know. That's it.
I almost said that. Wow. Mind meld.
This is what I want to talk about, though. One of the case studies that they said something that I've been waiting for a superintendent to say this for ages. They said what I say over and over, and I think I probably have even said it in this podcast about the absurdity of the status quo of a secondary system, of 45 minutes of any one subject before you get up and move to another subject. The idea of 45 minutes of science, of biology, I'm going to then get up, move, go do 45 minutes. I'm going to read The Great Gatsby. And in 45 minutes, I'm going to play the trombone. Then after that 45 minutes, I'm going to go change my clothes and run the mile.
That is
bananas.
And we're just so lucky that kids have the stamina to go from class to class. And 90% of them can keep their cool instead of losing their absolute minds on the people around them. Right? Why is it that we get mad at kids for responding in such a way? Yeah, totally.
So here's what I want to know. I would love to, because you were doing the interview and their model, the case study that they shared was really a project-based real world model. And we've talked about those kinds of things before, and I think there are examples, but they still tend to be in these situations where, look at this unique thing where people are learning in the world. Oh my goodness, that is literally what people do. That's the norm. But we've created this other thing that we call school that is crazy. Here's my question. What makes it so difficult to make real world learning the norm, the culture, as you said in the interview, the stitched into the culture of the org?
Well, I would ask you to go upstream and see what kind of experiences teachers have had outside of the classroom. And so making a concerted effort to begin introducing teachers to the workplace, to outside of school. School is a workplace. It is one context. Yes. However, we're preparing kids for teaching jobs potentially and all of these other jobs. And so unless we make a concerted effort to bring them to a modern day factory, like an actual factory, like they'd be so surprised what they look like now. This factory model that we have in our minds is not what they look like right now. They're high tech, ultra clean spaces to begin seeing what work looks like. Then we can begin thinking about how to reframe what instruction could look like, what project-based learning could be, because it makes more sense for what future work could look like.
I am about to lead a 2-day retreat with a district's leadership team. And I'm a big believer that if you're going to call it a retreat, do not hold it at the district office. That is bananas.
Totally
That doesn't feel
agree.
like a retreat.
Nope.
That is a meeting. That's what that's called. So in order to bridge the gap funding wise, we provided the venue. And so we rented a house that has multiple spots throughout the house, multiple amazing, beautiful spots to change how people learn, that the physical space will change the affect of the group and create a different learning environment.
What an innovative way. Never in a million years would I have thought about that. I would have thought, okay, well, what about the university campus? Or is there a convention area? Or
Yeah.
I love the thought of saying, well, what do we want to create together? Well, we want to create an experience where people feel like they're coming home. So why not rent a home? And let's do that. What is it? I love it. Jamie,
I rented a home.
So smart.
We're in Bend, Oregon. And so I rented a home on the river. So it's right by the water. You can sit right next to the river, see people floating by with their dogs on the river. It's idyllic. It's idyllic and so inspirational. And this is one in which people aren't staying at the house. They're coming from the surrounding areas.
I love the fact that you get to come there, convene, eat together, go out in the water, even creates time and space, put out watercolors, put out, colored pencils, and just encourage people to just take a moment to just be creative. And they can share if they want to. And at the same time, they can also just enjoy that time just with that creative expression, because it will, as they get into the flow, that will generate ideas for where they want to go as a team. Oh, I love it. What a great idea.
You got it. I'm really excited to do it tomorrow and the next day. We'll see how they respond.
Well, this has been fantastic. I'm so glad that we got Mike and Nick back. You did hear they make a comment about my dog. I leave it in there because my wife was out of town and the dog would not stop, took up like a pile of peanut butter crackers and it ran out of them. She just kept barking and no, she didn't throw up, but she found a toy where she kept biting and squeaking. So I had to keep hitting pause. I had to keep saying, oh, let me ask that question again. And so at the end you heard Nick go, all right, go take care of your dog. And
yeah,
I know. And I left it in there because it was a nightmare throughout the whole conversation, for which I've edited it all out except for go take care of your dog. They were so sweet and so understanding, and it was so embarrassing. So anyway, just another week of being awkward Pete. That's all. You've been listening to An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. I'm Peter Stiepelman.
And I'm J-Man Mansan.
And we will see you next week.
I'll see you next week, Peter.